Hello and good afternoon for those of us on the West Coast. Um, my name is Jennifer. I'm the Director of Outreach, Engagement, and Development for LibreTexts. And today we have Andy who's going to be giving a presentation on remixing. And Andy, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I always feel that that's the best way to go. So go ahead
Sounds
and
great.
take it away.
Sounds great. In chat, I'm just going to put a link to the presentation so that y'all have access to it because there's a whole bunch of hyperlinks in there. And maybe later, Jennifer, I'll make sure that you have access to it as well in case you want to add it to the recording. So
That's
today we're
great.
talking about remixing and supporting faculty to create open educational resources. And my name is Andy Atkins-Pogue. I am a librarian at Cosumnes River College, which is in Sacramento. I have actually been on release from the library for several years, working on coordinating OER and zero textbook costs initiatives at my college, although my office is still in the library and I still work very closely with librarians. A little bit about CRC. We are one of four colleges in the Los Rios Community College District. That's the Sacramento region of Northern California. And we are, of the four colleges, we are the third largest. So there are two other colleges that are slightly larger than us. We have about 16,000 unduplicated students, and we have seen growth over the last couple of years. This was an 8% growth over our last fall of 2023. We have about 600 employees at CRC, and nearly 450 of those are faculty members. So strong faculty presence at our college. Our student demographics, 75% of our students identify as people of color, about 50% live low income or below poverty, and 30% are first generation college students. I mentioned that I've been on release from the library for a few years, and that is because our college president identified an ambitious goal in the fall of 2021 that he wanted to become a zero textbook cost college. If y'all remember back then, lots of institutions of higher learning were receiving a lot of federal funding to help relieve some of the things that were happening during COVID. And colleges had a lot of leeway in how they were going to spend that money as long as it was supporting students. And our president decided that he wanted to do something that would not only impact that current class of students, but that would have a lasting impact. And so he articulated this goal, and they asked me to take on as the faculty lead. I will be quite honest with you, when it was articulated to me, I laughed and said, there's no way that can happen. And because he also gave me 1 year to do it, I said, there's no way it's going to happen. And I don't want to do it because I don't want to do something that's going to fail. And then he said, do the best you can. And they've continued to fund it. And we have state funding now as well. So I have been leading this project now is in, I think, 5 years. So how are we doing? We have found that we're saving our students about $2 million a semester. About $14 million since I started this project in 2021. Our zero textbook cost sections have continued to increase. When we started, we had about 10% of our class sections were zero textbook costs. In fall of 24, last fall, more than 1,000 sections were zero textbook costs. 75% of our class schedule was ZTC. Not all of that was OER. Some of it was material that was purchased through the library, but in many cases, it was open educational resources. We have a lot of faculty support here. 83% of our full-time faculty and 66% of our part-time faculty are teaching at least one zero textbook cost section. How did we do this? We have spent a lot of money on this project that has helped provide incentives for faculty to do the work. I've been coordinating it full time. We also have funding to hire support staff, and then librarians in the library also help. And that has allowed us to do a lot of support and outreach to faculty. And we have created a website that's kind of a one-stop shop that has all of our resources on it. I mentioned, I'll stick it in chat one more time because Heather came in after I sent it. This is a link to the slideshow, so it has active hyperlinks to everything. This website in California, a lot of our community colleges, I think all of our community colleges are doing guided pathways. At CRC, we call them career and academic communities. And so the website is organized by CAC. Then each CAC has a separate discipline page. And there's so many other resources on this site, professional development videos and how-tos. We've ordered books. We've created Canvas Commons, shells for a lot of the OpenStax books and some other OER that has been remixed. And so all of this is available for anyone to use. And I remember that, Rachel, that you had reached out. And so I hope you found some of it useful. Rachel had mentioned that I sent her a version of the Google site. And so I'm happy to do that at any time. I usually will make a copy of it and then share the copy with you, and you can have access to anything that's on the site. So why do we recommend LibreText for remixing? Well, because there are so many platforms out there that have OER, but if you're trying to actually do a remix or add some of your own content, I think it's the easiest platform to do that. And it is free for all California community colleges, California faculty. So it's a free resource. You can have a LibreNet membership, which we also have. Our district and each college has a membership, which allows us to have individual libraries within Commons. And it's also, lots of people use OpenStax, but you can't really get in and edit an OpenStax books. But those OpenStax books are on the LibreText platform. And so if you want to do some editing, you can. And also, we love the fact that new features are always being added and updated and enhanced. So really, the point of this presentation was to talk about how can you support faculty when they're starting a remixing project. So I will tell you that I mentioned I have librarians that help with this project. We've also hired temporary classified professionals who help support this work. And the librarians are often working on things while they are doing other tasks in the library. So it's kind of a twofer. They might be working on the reference desk and have some downtime, and then they can also work on some other things. So I know there's a lot of information on this slide, but really it was just meant to give you some access to some links. So for when a faculty member says, yeah, I'm interested in OER, I want to see what's out there, I might want to do a remix, kind of the first step is we have an initial research document where we've gone out and done some initial research for them. So this first link is an example of a completed document. And this is kind of just a standard template, and then it goes through different resources that faculty member might use, including some of it is not OER and some of it is library material. So we're looking for any way that we can get that faculty member to buy in to creating the zero textbook cost section. The next thing on this slide is just the template that we use. So you're welcome to kind of take that template and make it your own. And there's some instructions embedded in the template. And then I also have a separate workflow that I give to the librarian so they kind of know how to create that document. And this is just a separate slideshow that walks them through each section of the document. Some of the links that are inside here, because this is an internal resource, you won't have access to, like it's an internal drive, but the general basics of it you should have access to, and you're welcome to use this and copy it. Then, when faculty are ready to actually do something, we ask them to create an outline for us. And I've also linked some stuff in here as well. So this is the, oops, that's your video. This is, I meant to put it in here and I realized I didn't. I will put it in here. The blank template that you can copy from. This is an example of a completed template where we've asked them, what is the name of your, I tell them they can call them chapters or modules, whatever they want. She knew she was going to embed this into Canvas, so she named them modules. She gives us the section title, and then she tells us where the information is coming from. And then there's a video that I give to faculty who are working on this template so they understand how LibreTexts works. And then this sample template produced this textbook. So you can kind of see an example of a finished product once it's done. And I will link that, the blank template. It's also on the website. Here. So faculty, this is what they're first looking at, this blank template, and that can be, they'll just look at it and say, I have no idea what you want. So that's why the video is helpful, so they understand what it is that you're looking for. And so what typically happens is they will turn this into me, and invariably they may not understand how to navigate LibreText and LibreCommons to find all of the different resources out there. So I'll often have faculty say, well, I really, really want to use this chapter from this OER, but I couldn't find it on LibreText. So I typically will have to spend a little bit of time kind of going through their outline. I would say 85% of the time, maybe even 90% of the time, I actually can find it on LibreText. It just may have been in a place where they weren't looking. So once I get that outline completed, I look it over. I usually have some questions. I will meet with the faculty member, get my questions answered, and then I turn it over to, we call them OER specialists, or temporary classified professionals. And so I have them set up a LibreOne account, and then here is their workflow where they actually create that remix from the outline. And they go through the steps of setting up a project in Conductor. They add me to the project, they add the faculty member to the project, and then they start remixing and putting it together in the remixer. Then once that is built out, we actually push the book out, and it's still kind of behind the scenes. And that's when we bring the faculty member in and say, okay, here's your textbook. We go over some basics about actually editing things. And then we work with them to get it to a finalized product, so that the editor that's in LibreText, it's the same text editor that is in Canvas, which all of our faculty are pretty familiar with. So that kind of alleviates the anxiety when they're actually editing something. Having that, the construction of it beforehand, they don't have to learn the interface, they don't have to learn how to use the remixer. The outline itself, like I said, oftentimes they don't understand how to navigate it completely in LibreText, and so we kind of come in and help with that part of it. But having that all in place, so they just get to the final phase where they're making final edits, is Great. That really is the bulk of my presentation. It was mostly kind of sharing links and material so that others could potentially use or build off of it. Um, and then the last thing on this slide is just a link back to the slideshow and then some attribution. So I'm going to stop sharing and then see if anybody has questions.
So I have a question about your NUs, your non-bargaining units, your what did you call them? You called them OER specialists.
Yes,
So like, how long does it take you to train them to then be able to do this work? Like, do you have to go through the whole hiring process? Like
yeah,
anything? And okay, so you go through the whole hiring, and then how long do they often stay with you? Because I've only ever seen like student workers, they stay for a semester or two and then they bounce. How have
yeah.
you had them that have stayed long term?
I have. I had one who he he was amazing, and he stayed with me for 3 years. He was when he started, he was in grad school.
Oh,
He
okay.
was a former student. He was in grad school. He was in grad school for 2 years, and then he actually got a full-time job, but he really liked the work, and so he continued, even though he got a job at SpaceX. So he was, way he was doing work for us way below his pay grade,
Cute.
but he just enjoyed the work and he thought it was impactful and he was really fast and really good. It's you got to find people who are tech savvy, who understand
Yes.
how to. That has been a challenge sometimes. And that's why I have all of those workflow instructions,
Yeah.
because what I initially found is I would spend some time training someone
Hmm.
and then they would leave and then I'd have to do it all over again.
Hmm.
So the training slideshows, I will often revisit when a new person comes on because they
Right.
will say, well, this part doesn't make sense to me, or I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Um, I have been lucky. I've had faculty actually recommend
Oh,
people that they think would be good in this position. So I have what tends to happen though is that I will find somebody that's really great, but they have another job or something else, and so they can't dedicate that much time to the project. Um, but yeah, that is a challenge trying to first go through the whole hiring thing and then keeping them.
and then do you end up with like a queue? Because like part of the other thing is I don't want to mislead someone. So like we have the option of doing NBUs, but then the problem is that like what if, sometimes there's no work and sometimes there's lots of work. How do you guys stagger it so that you have enough work to basically make it worth the person's time, your part-time OER specialist? Like how are you
Yeah,
making it worth their time?
I have so many other tasks that I have
Yes.
them working on.
Hmm.
So I have that they're like doing an audit of the schedule to make sure that the ZTC symbol is up there properly. And I have them auditing our program maps to make sure that we've marked classes properly, that say there's zero textbook costs. That website that I showed you, um, there's updates that happen to that almost on a daily basis. So yes, I can share this with you. I just shared it with the OERI and I said, if there's
Yeah.
anything that you think would be useful, just let me know. I have, because I was creating so many of these workflows, I I finally just made a spreadsheet for myself so that
Yes.
I couldn't remember where I had put things.
Yeah.
So at least this helps for me to find things. And
Mhm.
I when I shared it with the OERI, I told them I haven't gone through every single one of these to know if I've marked it public. So if there's something that you want to see and you don't have access to it, just let me know.
Cool.
Um, and I will also say that I have not everything is remediated,
Hmm.
because it's internal stuff.
Hmm.
If I'm sharing it like this, I really try to make sure my videos are captioned and I have alt text on things. But I know that there are some things in this list that are not remediated. So just trying to get
And
to
then
the.
one follow-up question too for your Google site, which thank you again for sharing that version of it. with me. That was so kind of you when you I honestly thought you'd tell me no when I reached out to ask. So that was so kind of you. At Irvine Valley, they don't like, they say it's a security risk. They say, oh, a Google site, is it going to be a security risk? We can't have a Google site as a repository. And I'm like, it's open educational resources. The whole point is to share it with everyone. Why would we need security? Did you
Yeah,
have any sort of issue like that?
no.
Nothing.
The
They didn't care.
the only issue I had was I I wanted to share a link to that site on
Mhm.
our student facing website because
Yeah.
students have been going to that too because the class will say it's zero textbook cost and it's using OER, but they want to know what it is using.
Mhm.
And they pushed back on that.
Mhm.
Our public information office said no because we're not. We need to ensure that everything is accessible that we're sharing. But
Yeah.
they did allow me to put a link on the employee website. So
That's fascinating. Thank you. I was just so curious. I love the website. It really, really helped me like help understand like how you guys were organizing and everything. And this spreadsheet you just sent is awesome
yeah.
with all your lists. So thank you. I feel like there was one other question in the chat.
Um, Access to the Google site you shared previously, yes. It's it's linked in the slideshow, but I'll stick another link.
And then I have one additional question for you.
Yes.
So, for your like OER program, because you get to work on it full time, you have like basically reassigned time. Yes, is that what you guys will consider it? So you have
Correct. Yeah.
reassigned time to do this right now. Like, how do you guys see sustainably like keeping it going? Are you going to have to continually be able to do this, or are you going to be able to find ways to close out the program and sustain it? You know, with just like infrequent updates.
I wish I knew the answer to that question. We have been so they have we have used the HERF funding initially and now grant funding to fund myself, and they've backfilled my position with a long-term temporary for we've had 4 years of it now.
Nice.
And we'll do it again next year and then at least one semester of the following year. That's
Mhm.
all being funded by the zero textbook cost grant through the chancellor's office.
Mhm.
As we are doing this, so our faculty hiring process is it's a competitive process, and we usually kind of you give your pitch to there's a group of faculty and administrators,
Mhm.
and then those are ranked.
Yeah.
And then the district office comes in and says, this is how many positions you have. And so whatever bubbles to the top gets funding. So not we didn't do it this year because we were so disappointed because last year we did it and we because we were trying to make this sustainable, that we
Yeah.
wanted this new position so that we could continue this work even after this grant money is gone.
Yeah.
It ranked high enough to get funded, but here's the caveat. Typically in classroom faculty positions, they convert adjunct hours to a full-time position.
Yeah.
And if we would have done that, it would have cleared out all of our adjunct hours. We would have had no adjunct hours because we didn't have enough to convert.
Yeah.
So we were asking for a growth position to make this a brand new position.
Yeah.
And we argued that this work is not going away. You need somebody to support it.
Mhm.
And my argument was at some point, this district determined that distance education was important enough that you needed to have a full-time coordinator, and you created these growth positions. And my argument is that you at some point need to decide that this is important enough and you need to create a growth position. We were also kind of it was a bad ask from our part because we're a 4 college district, and the district office says, well, if we give it to you, we have to give it to everybody else. And so we have been pushing back on that, saying we're not all the same. We have different priorities. We have different goals. We have different faculty. We're ready to move forward. If they're not ready, that's fine, but don't hold us back because they're not ready. So now we're slowly trying to build that case again to try to go out again next year and continue to argue that it needs to be a growth position.
I mean, because if you guys are at 75%, like that's a lot of materials to try to maintain. That's a lot of things. Like
It
that's
is a
we're not
lot.
talking about a little bit of work that's basically gonna I couldn't figure out how y'all were gonna make it sustainable if your position wasn't stable.
Yeah.
Like to
I
maintain all of those resources.
There's no way it would be
Okay.
sustainable if I wasn't here. And that honestly, that is my biggest fear is
Mhm.
the money is gone. I get released back to the library, but
Mhm.
there's going to be some expectation that I go back to doing my library duties, but
Mhm.
also somehow maintaining this. And there's just absolutely no way.
And has the library talked about some sort of backup plan where they could combine it with like your library system? Because like Kalinga went with Alma Digital, so like they're gonna, but like they're having to pay it, right? Heather, are you still here? I don't know if Heather's here. Like they're gonna do like
Yeah,
some
I'm
sort of
here.
like cataloging, like all that kind of stuff to try to integrate it. So like just to like have the sustainability for the resources, but you still have all the coordination that's supposed to be done, like all of that upkeep work. So I was just curious, like what are your thoughts on that? Because that's I think this is kind of a narrative across the state where there's a lot of OER librarians who are being paid with grant funding. There's a lot of coordinators that are being paid with grant funding. So when that money goes away, how are we sustaining this work with the infrastructure and with our programs? So like any thoughts?
Yeah. We already have a lot of integration with the library. We do have
Okay.
Almadi, so
Yeah.
we have, if we're doing controlled digital lending, that's available through our catalog, and so I really have pressed on my colleagues to help support in this as well, and we have pushed back a little bit and said we need more time. So they have given us extra FTE to help cover overload for some folks and to bring more adjuncts in to help. Um, I don't I don't know what it's gonna look like. I but we're it's so librarian positions are so hard because they don't generate wish,
Yeah.
they don't you know, they can't produce student success data easily.
Hmm.
It's just such a hard sell. And I think, especially after COVID, now so many of our administrators think, well, why do you even need a library? Everything's
Hmm.
online. So it
Yes.
really is a hard sell to continue to show your value and your need. Um,
And you guys just have documentation and then you just build an argument basically. You build a case
yeah,
for why all of these things require a growth position. And then you're just
yeah,
going to keep advocating for that until you can get it as a sustainable. Cool.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and we like I did a presentation in front of our board of trustees last year and really pushed hard. And
Yeah.
I made the case for them too. I said, "Hey, you gotta help us make this a
Yeah.
growth position." And then there's actually our March board meeting. They asked all four colleges to present. So I'm going to go to that meeting because I'm curious to
Nice.
see what the other colleges say
Yeah.
as well.
I find it fascinating. Like Irvine Valley College, they did it differently. So I'm technically a reference and instruction librarian, 19 hours a week, and every librarian has one special project. So I am the OER coordinator, and so for the rest of my hours, I'm doing OER coordination. Whereas when I was in Kalinga with Heather, we were full time, 100% OER. That's all we did. So
Yeah.
like my position's more sustainable. I'm in a tenure track role, but also like the growth is much slower.
Mhm.
So it's just like that kind of narrative, and I'm so curious on how we're going to sustain this. And I just wanted, I honestly, I saw your name and I was like, I know this person because she gave me her Google site last year. So I wanted to thank you for that. And thank you for your presentation.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have any ideas on how in sustainability, I would love, and congratulations to you and Heather for the exemplary program award.
It was all Heather. Like I just
No,
started it. Heather built it out.
no, it it was a relay.
Relay is a good term.
So Rachel was really good at getting traction, and then I've been making sure the wings are fixed to the body.
Implementing
And
Alma D. I would not have been able to do that.
I mean it's happening, but one of the fun things is we're getting mark cataloging for all of the OERs, and we're going to load it up to the OCLC. And so that should help with discoverability, for
Yeah.
our students, but then also help with adoption and integration into other libraries, like, like other people have Alma D, it's like the record's already there. You could just slap your copy onto it and
Yeah, we have created our own electronic collection for
Mhm.
OER too. So those are discoverable and we have them on reading lists within our catalog. So I have not been involved in any part of that, but if you ever want to pick the brains of our catalogers, I'm sure they'd
Oh
be.
yeah, no, we're at this point it is a one woman shop, and so we are hiring professional catalogers.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, no, yeah, that's let's have that done by an expert.
But like, I like the term growth position. I think that would really help because like we would love for Heather's position to be a growth, but like continuous position. And so it's just like how do we
Yeah.
start advocating for that and really showing that this work requires a full-time
Mm,
person, when you get up
mm.
to those high numbers. Irvine Valley's at 10% right now. We're at the beginning. We're the late adopters. We're not.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you so much, ma'am. I really appreciate it.